My own daughter banned me from her wedding ceremony because I refused to pay the $80,000 she demanded for her dream wedding. 3 weeks later, she showed up at my lakefront home with legal documents, demanding I transfer the property to her, claiming I owed her this after ruining the most important day of her life. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about family, love, and the price of standing up for yourself. My name is Sarah, and at 62, I thought I had life figured out. After my husband David passed 5 years ago, I found solace in our little piece of paradise on Lake Michigan. This wasn't just any house. It was our dream home that we bought as a fixer-upper 25 years ago and spent every weekend transforming together. David would joke that we put more love into those walls than money, though by the time we finished, we'd invested both our hearts and our life savings into making it perfect. The property sits on 2 acres with 300 feet of private lakefront. We planted every tree in the yard, laid every stone in the garden paths, and personally restored the 1920s craftsman architecture. David built the wraparound porch with his own hands, and I still remember summer evenings when we'd sit there watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and amber. After he died, this house became more than my home. It became my sanctuary, my connection to him, and honestly, my only real asset. I live modestly on David's pension and my small Social Security check. The house is paid off, thank God, but the property taxes alone cost me $4,000 a year. I grow my own vegetables, buy generic groceries, and haven't taken a vacation in 5 years. But I'm content. The lake provides all the beauty and peace I need, and I figured I'd live here until I died, then leave it to my daughter Emma. Emma is my only child, and after David's death, she became the center of my world. She's 28, works in marketing in Chicago, and has always been particular about things. Even as a child, she had expensive tastes and grand ideas about how life should be. When she was 16, she threw a tantrum because I wouldn't buy her a BMW like her friends' parents did. Everyone else's parents care about their kids' happiness, she'd said. That phrase became her favorite weapon. When Emma called last spring to announce her engagement to Marcus, I was thrilled. I'd met Marcus a few times. He seemed like a decent man, though quiet, maybe a bit overwhelmed by Emma's personality. "Mom," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement, "I need to come over this weekend to discuss the wedding plans. This is going to be the most incredible celebration ever." I should have known from her tone that trouble was coming. She arrived that Saturday with a 3-ring binder, a laptop, and what she called her wedding vision board. Before I could even offer her coffee, she had papers spread across my kitchen table like a general planning a military campaign. "Okay, Mom, I've done all the research," she began, flipping through pages of printouts. "The venue I want is the Grand Harbor Resort. You know, the one with the glass ballroom overlooking the lake. It's $25,000 for the reception space alone, but it's absolutely perfect. Then there's catering. I'm thinking lobster and filet mignon for 150 guests. That's another $18,000. The dress I want is custom, from this designer in New York, $12,000. Oh, and Marcus and I really want to honeymoon in Italy for 3 weeks. That's $15,000. I sat there, my coffee growing cold, as the numbers kept climbing. Wedding favors, $2,000. Photography, $8,000. Flowers, $6,000. Band, $5,000. And on until she reached the final total. So altogether, it comes to about $80,000. She said casually, as if she were talking about $80. "I know it sounds like a lot, but this is my one wedding, Mom. This is supposed to be the happiest day of my life." I felt my stomach drop. "Emma, honey, I don't have that kind of money." Her expression shifted instantly. "What do you mean you don't have it? You own this huge house on the lake. You and Dad always lived so simply. Where did all the money go?" "There is no money, sweetheart. Your father and I put everything we had into this house and into raising you. I live on a fixed income now. I could probably help with maybe $15,000 if I use my emergency savings, but $80,000, that's impossible." Emma stared at me like I'd slapped her. "$15,000? That won't even cover the dress and the flowers. You're sitting on a gold mine here, she gestured around the room. And you're being cheap about my wedding? I'm not being cheap, Emma. I literally don't have the money. And even if I did, $80,000 is more than most people make in a year. Couldn't you have something smaller, more intimate? More intimate? Her voice rose to a shrill pitch. Mom, this is 2024, not 1985. People expect a certain level of celebration. My friends are going to be there. Marcus's family, my colleagues. I can't serve them hot dogs in a church basement. That stung. David and I had gotten married in a small church with a reception in the community hall, and it was one of the most beautiful days of my life. But I tried to stay calm. What does Marcus think about all this? Marcus agrees that we should have the wedding of our dreams. He says his parents will contribute what they can, maybe $5,000, but they're not wealthy either. Mom, you're my only parent now. This is what parents do. They sacrifice for their children's happiness. There was that phrase again. I took a deep breath. Emma, I understand this is important to you, but I need you to understand my position. I'm 62 years old, living on a fixed income. That $15,000 I offered, that's my entire emergency fund. If I get sick, if the roof needs major repairs, if the furnace dies, that money is all I have. So get a loan against the house. I won't put my home at risk, Emma. This is where I plan to live for the rest of my life. She slammed her binder shut. Fine, I guess I know where I stand. Your comfort is more important than my happiness. You know what, Mom? If you can't make this sacrifice for me, then maybe you don't deserve to be at my wedding. I thought she was just upset, speaking in anger. Emma, please don't say things you don't mean. I mean every word. You have a choice to make. Either you figure out how to pay for this wedding or you're not invited. It's that simple. She packed up her materials and left, and I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks. When she finally called, her voice was cold and formal. I wanted to let you know that the wedding is set for June 15th. Since you've made your position clear, I won't be sending you an invitation. I hope you're happy with your decision. Emma, please, can't we talk about this? Maybe there's a middle ground. There's nothing to discuss, Mother. You made your choice. The line went dead. I want to pause here for a moment. If you're listening to this and you're a parent, you know how devastating it feels when your child cuts you out of their life. I spent weeks wondering if I was wrong, if I should have found a way to get the money. Should I have taken out a reverse mortgage? Sold the house? Was I being selfish? Leave a comment below and let me know what you would have done in my situation. And if this story is resonating with you, please subscribe because it gets so much more complicated from here. The weeks leading up to Emma's wedding were torture. I found myself driving by the bridal shops, wondering what her dress looked like. I imagined Marcus standing at the altar, wondering where his future mother-in-law was. I even drove past the Grand Harbor Resort on the day of the wedding, seeing all the elegant cars in the parking lot, and wondering if she was truly happy. But what really hurt was what I started hearing from neighbors and mutual friends. Emma had apparently been telling everyone that her mother was wealthy but too selfish to pay for her wedding. Mrs. Peterson from next door mentioned that she'd run into Emma at the grocery store. That poor girl, Mrs. Peterson said, shaking her head. She told me how you have all this money invested but won't spend it on her special day. She seemed so heartbroken. I was mortified. What exactly did she say? Well, she mentioned something about secret bank accounts and how you and David had been saving for decades, but now you won't touch the money. She said you told her you'd rather keep every penny than see her happy. This wasn't just hurtful, it was completely untrue. I had been completely honest with Emma about my financial situation. The only investments I had were a small IRA worth about $30,000 that I couldn't touch without penalties, and a life insurance policy that wouldn't pay out until I died. Then things got stranger. My neighbor across the lake, Mr. Rodriguez, called me one afternoon with a concerning question. Sarah, are you thinking of selling the house? What? No, why would you ask that? Well, there was a young woman here yesterday with a man in a suit, and they were taking pictures of your property from the water. When I asked what they were doing, she said she was going to be the new owner soon and was just showing it to a potential buyer for when she was ready to sell. My blood ran cold. What did this woman look like? Blonde, pretty, about 30 maybe? She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. It was Emma. I was sure of it. I tried calling her, but my calls went straight to voicemail. I left message after message asking her to call me back, saying we needed to talk. Nothing. Meanwhile, more disturbing reports kept coming in. The mailman mentioned that someone had been asking him about my mail delivery schedule. The lawn service said a woman claiming to be my daughter had asked about the property maintenance costs and whether I was behind on any payments. Then Marcus called. "Mrs. Davidson, this is Marcus, Emma's husband now." His voice sounded strained, tired. "Marcus, congratulations on the wedding. I hope it was beautiful." "Thank you. Listen, I'm calling because I think there might be some misunderstandings that need to be cleared up. Emma told me that you promised to help with the wedding expenses, but then changed your mind at the last minute." I felt my heart sink. "Marcus, that's not what happened at all. I offered what I could, $15,000, but Emma wanted $80,000. I simply don't have that kind of money." There was a long pause. $80,000, Mrs. Davidson, Emma told me the wedding only cost $30,000 total and that you'd promised to pay for half but backed out. Now I was confused. "What venue did you use?" "We had the ceremony at St. Mark's Church and the reception in their fellowship hall." Emma said it was what she'd always dreamed of, something small and intimate. She said you were the one pushing for something big and expensive. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Emma had completely rewritten the story. "Marcus, I think we need to have a conversation in person. There are some things you need to know." We agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day. When Marcus arrived, he looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. The confident young man I'd met before looked anxious and worn down. "Mrs. Davidson, I have to be honest with you. Things have been complicated since the wedding. Emma keeps talking about money we don't have and making plans for things we can't afford. She's already booked a 3-week trip to Italy that costs $15,000, and when I asked how we're going to pay for it, she said not to worry about it." I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos I'd taken of Emma's original wedding binder. "Marcus, this is what she showed me. This is what she wanted me to pay for." His face went pale as he flipped through the images. "The Grand Harbor Resort, lobster dinners. Mrs. Davidson, our wedding cost $8,000 total. Emma told me your family always keeps things simple and that you'd raised her to be frugal." "There's something else you need to know," I said gently. "Emma has been telling people in town that I'm wealthy but selfish, and neighbors have reported seeing her showing the property to potential buyers, claiming she's going to be the owner soon." Marcus put his head in his hands. "Oh, God. Mrs. Davidson, there's something I need to tell you. Emma has been meeting with lawyers." My heart started racing. "Lawyers? For what?" "She says she's exploring options for, what did she call it? Parental neglect claims. She believes you have a legal obligation to support her financial needs because you're her only living parent." This was getting scary. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. I love Emma with all my heart, but I don't have the money she thinks I do. This house is my only asset and I need it to live. I can't just give it to her." "I know," he said quietly. "I'm starting to realize that Emma might not be the person I thought she was." We parted ways that day with Marcus promising to talk to Emma, to try to get her to call me. But instead of a phone call, what I got was much worse. If you're finding this story unbelievable, trust me, I felt the same way living through it. Sometimes the people we love most are capable of shocking us in the worst possible ways. Make sure you're subscribed because what happened next was something I never could have prepared for. It was a Tuesday morning in July, about 3 weeks after Emma's wedding, when I heard cars pulling up my driveway. I looked out the window and saw Emma getting out of a black sedan, followed by a man in a suit carrying a briefcase. I met them at the front door, my heart pounding. Emma looked different, harder somehow, with an expression I'd never seen before. "Hello, Mother," she said formally. "Emma, sweetheart, I'm so glad you're here. We need to talk." "We're not here to talk," she interrupted. "We're here to resolve this situation once and for all. This is Mr. Patterson, my attorney." The man in the suit stepped forward. "Mrs. Davidson, I'm here representing your daughter in a matter concerning property transfer and parental obligations." "I'm sorry, what?" Emma's voice was cold and businesslike. "Mom, you had your chance to do the right thing and support me when I needed you most. Since you chose to be selfish and cruel, I've had to take legal action to protect my interests." "Emma, what are you talking about?" Mr. Patterson opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. "Mrs. Davidson, we have evidence that you misrepresented your financial situation to your daughter, causing her emotional distress and financial hardship. We also have documentation showing that this property was purchased with the understanding that it would be your daughter's inheritance." I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. That's not, I mean, yes, I always planned to leave the house to Emma, but that doesn't mean. "It means," Emma said, her voice rising, "that you've been living in my house, using my inheritance, while refusing to help me when I needed it most. Do you know what I went through? The humiliation of having to tell Marcus's family that my own mother abandoned me? Emma, I offered you $15,000. That was my entire emergency fund." "15,000?" She laughed bitterly. "Mom, this house is worth over $1 million. You're sitting on a fortune while I'm struggling to pay for the basics of adult life." Mr. Patterson held out the papers. "We're prepared to resolve this matter amicably. This is a deed transfer document. Sign it and we can put this whole unfortunate situation behind us." I stared at the papers in shock. "You want me to sign over my house?" "Our proposal is reasonable," the lawyer continued. "You can continue living here for up to 2 years while you make arrangements for alternative housing. This allows you time to transition while ensuring that your daughter receives what is rightfully hers." Rightfully hers? This is my home. David and I bought this house, renovated it, paid for it, with money that would have otherwise been my inheritance, Emma snapped. "Every dollar you spent on this place was money that should have come to me eventually. You've been stealing from my future for 25 years. The audacity of it took my breath away. "Emma, that's not how inheritance works. Parents aren't required to preserve every penny for their children. We lived our lives, we built our home, and now it's time to pay me back." She turned to the lawyer. "Show her the other documents." Mr. Patterson pulled out another set of papers. "Mrs. Davidson, we've also prepared a formal complaint alleging parental neglect and financial abuse. In Michigan, adult children have certain rights when it comes to parental support, especially when the parent has significant assets." This was insane. Financial abuse? "Emma, I raised you, clothed you, fed you, put you through college, and then you abandoned me when I needed you most." Emma's composure finally cracked. "Do you know what it was like, having to explain to everyone why my own mother wasn't at my wedding? Do you know how humiliating it was to have a simple church ceremony when all my friends had real weddings?" Real weddings? I felt my own anger rising. "Emma, your father and I had a simple church ceremony, and it was one of the most beautiful days of my life." "That was different. That was 40 years ago. Things cost money now, Mom. Real celebrations, real honeymoons, real houses. Everything costs money that I don't have because you're hoarding it all." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Davidson, I should mention that we've already been in contact with a buyer for the property. If you sign the transfer today, your daughter is prepared to sell immediately for $1.2 million. After paying the capital gains taxes and fees, she'll net close to $1 million. She's already sold it?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Emma had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Not officially sold, but I've been in negotiations with a developer who wants to tear down this old house and build something modern. The land alone is worth the investment." "Tear down the house?" I felt like I might faint. "Emma, your father built that porch with his own hands. We planted every tree, laid every stone. It's just a house, Mom. It's old and outdated and probably full of problems. The developer showed me the plans for what he wants to build. It's gorgeous, modern, efficient, much better than this old place. That's when something broke inside me. This wasn't grief or disappointment anymore, it was rage. "Get out," I said quietly. "Excuse me?" Emma looked startled. "I said get out of my house, both of you." Mr. Patterson stepped forward. "Mrs. Davidson, I don't think you understand the seriousness of this situation. If you don't cooperate, we'll be forced to file the complaint and seek a court order." "File whatever you want," I said, my voice getting stronger. "But get off my property right now or I'm calling the police." Emma's mask of composure completely slipped. "Fine, be that way. You think you've won something, but you haven't. I know things about you, about Dad's finances, about this house. You think you can just keep everything for yourself, but I have rights. I have lawyers, and I have friends in this town who know the truth about what kind of person you really are." "And what kind of person am I, Emma?" "You're selfish. You're cruel. You're a bitter old woman who would rather keep every penny than see her own daughter happy. You know what? I'm glad Dad isn't alive to see what you've become." That was the moment I knew I'd lost my daughter forever. Not because of money or property or lawyers, but because of who she'd chosen to become. The Emma standing in my living room wasn't the child I'd raised. She was a stranger wearing my daughter's face. After they left, I sat in David's chair on the porch and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. Then I did something I should have done weeks earlier. I called a lawyer of my own. You know what I discovered? Everything Emma's lawyer had told me was complete nonsense. There's no such thing as parental obligation to fund adult children's lifestyle choices. There's no legal basis for claiming that parents can't spend their own money on their own home, and selling property you don't own, that's fraud. But what I found out next changed everything I thought I knew about the situation. And let me tell you, the truth was so much worse than anything I could have imagined. My lawyer, Janet Morrison, was a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in elder law and family disputes. After I told her the whole story, she leaned back in her chair with a knowing look. "Sarah, I've seen cases like this before. What concerns me most isn't the property dispute. That's clearly without merit. What concerns me is that your daughter may have already committed several crimes." "Crimes?" "If she's been showing the property to buyers and accepting money or commitments based on ownership she doesn't have, that's fraud. If she's been spreading false information about your finances to damage your reputation, that could be defamation. And if she's been investigating your personal financial information without permission, that might be identity theft." Janet recommended I hire a private investigator to find out exactly what Emma had been up to. What we discovered was shocking. Emma hadn't just been showing the house to one potential buyer. She'd been running what amounted to a con game. She'd contacted 3 different developers, told each of them that she was the sole heir to lakefront property that would be available soon, and had accepted earnest money deposits totaling $60,000. She'd used this money to pay for the Italy honeymoon, a new car, and a down payment on a condo in Chicago that she couldn't actually afford. The wedding that Marcus thought cost $8,000, it had actually cost $35,000. Emma had paid for the difference using the deposits from the fake property sales. But the worst part was what she'd been telling people in town. Emma had created an elaborate story about how I was suffering from early dementia, making poor financial decisions, and that she was trying to protect the family assets from my declining mental state. She'd even visited my doctor's office, claiming to be concerned about my forgetful behavior and asking if there were signs she should watch for. When Janet showed me the investigator's report, I felt sick. This wasn't just about money anymore. Emma had been systematically destroying my reputation and credibility while setting up a narrative that would make her look like the responsible, caring daughter. "Sarah," Janet said gently, "I need to ask you a difficult question. How long has Emma been like this?" I thought about it honestly. I think I've been making excuses for her behavior for years. Even as a child, she had this way of twisting situations to make herself look like the victim. If she got in trouble at school, It was the teacher's fault. If she didn't get something she wanted, it was because we didn't love her enough. I always told myself she was just spirited, or going through a phase, or, or you were hoping she'd outgrow it, Janet finished. The truth is, some people don't, and when they have something significant to gain, they can become very dangerous. That evening, Marcus called me. He sounded terrible. Mrs. Davidson, I need to tell you something. I'm filing for divorce. Oh, Marcus, I'm so sorry. No, don't be sorry. You tried to warn me in your way. I should have listened. He paused. Can I ask you something? Did you know that Emma told me you'd agreed to pay for our honeymoon? What? She said you felt so bad about missing the wedding that you wanted to send us to Italy as an apology gift. I thought it was incredibly generous, especially after she told me how hurt she was by your absence. My heart sank. Marcus, I never agreed to pay for anything beyond what I originally offered. I know that now. Mrs. Davidson, I found out Emma has been lying to me about almost everything since we got engaged. The wedding costs, your financial situation, even your health. She told me you were showing signs of dementia, and that's why you'd been acting so irrationally about the money. She told people I have dementia? She's been telling everyone that. She said that's why she needs to take control of your finances, to protect you from yourself. I was speechless. This was so much worse than I'd thought. There's more, Marcus continued. I found out Emma has been taking money from people by promising them things she can't deliver. She owes money all over Chicago. The only reason our creditors haven't come after us yet is because she keeps telling them that her inheritance is coming through any day now. Marcus, you need to know that I've hired a lawyer and a private investigator. Emma may have committed fraud. I hope you prosecute her, he said quietly. I really do. What she's done to you, to me, to all the people she's lied to, it's not okay. And Mrs. Davidson, I want you to know that your daughter wasn't always like this. When we first started dating, she seemed sweet and loving. But looking back, I think she was just playing a role until she got what she wanted. After we hung up, I sat in the gathering darkness looking out at the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the first stars of evening. David and I used to sit here every night during the summer, planning our days, sharing our dreams, talking about Emma's future. We'd always imagined she'd bring her children here someday, that they'd swim in the same water where she'd learned, that we'd build sandcastles on the same beach where she'd played as a little girl. We'd dreamed of growing old together in this house, watching our family expand and thrive. Instead, I was sitting alone, preparing to take legal action against my own child. But you know what? For the first time in months, I felt peace. Because I'd finally stopped making excuses and started seeing the truth. And the truth, even when it's painful, is always better than living a lie. The resolution came faster than I expected, and the justice was more perfect than anything I could have scripted. 3 days after my conversation with Marcus, Emma showed up at my house again. This time she was alone, and she looked panicked. Mom, we need to talk. There's been a huge misunderstanding about everything. I didn't invite her in. We stood on the porch, with the lake sparkling behind us in the morning sun. What kind of misunderstanding, Emma? The buyers I was talking to, they're getting impatient. They want to see the deed transfer, and when I told them there might be delays, they started making threats about getting their deposits back. What deposits? She shifted uncomfortably. Well, it's standard practice to take earnest money when you're selling property. It shows good faith on both sides. Emma, how much earnest money did you take? It's not important right now. What's important is that we resolve this quickly. I've been thinking about our conversation, and I realize I may have come across as demanding. What if we compromise? You sign over the house, and I'll let you live here rent-free for the rest of your life. You'd never have to worry about property taxes or maintenance again. I almost laughed. She was trying to make it sound like she was doing me a favor. Emma, I've hired a lawyer. I know about the 3 different buyers, the $60,000 in deposits, and the stories you've been telling about my mental health. Her face went white. Mom, you don't understand. I was trying to protect you. Protect me from what? from making a mistake, from letting this valuable property just sit here when it could be helping both of us build better futures. By lying to buyers and taking their money for property you don't own? It's not lying. I am going to inherit this house eventually, right? I was just accelerating the timeline. That's when I realized Emma truly didn't understand that what she'd done was wrong. In her mind, anything that got her what she wanted was justified. Emma, you committed fraud, multiple counts. The FBI could get involved. The FBI? She looked genuinely shocked. Mom, that's ridiculous. This is a family matter. Taking money under false pretenses isn't a family matter, Emma. It's a federal crime. For the first time since this whole situation began, Emma looked scared. Okay, look, maybe I made some mistakes in how I handled things. But we can fix this. I'll return the deposits. I'll clear up any misunderstandings about your health, and we'll start over fresh. With what money, Emma? Marcus told me you've already spent everything on vacations and cars and condos you can't afford. She stared at me for a long moment, and I watched as her expression shifted from scared to calculating, to desperate, and finally, to furious. Fine, she said, her voice turning cold. You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. You think anyone in this town is going to believe you over me? I'm young, I'm sympathetic. I'm the poor daughter whose elderly mother is clearly losing her grip on reality. You're just a bitter old woman who's become paranoid and vindictive. Is that really what you think of me? I think you're pathetic, she said. And for the first time, I heard the real Emma speaking without any pretense. You're sitting in this old house, hoarding money you're never going to spend, refusing to help the people who love you. Dad would be ashamed of what you've become. Your father would be heartbroken to see what you've become, I replied quietly. She turned and walked away, and I knew it was the last time I'd ever see my daughter, but the story wasn't over yet. 2 days later, Janet called me with news. Sarah, one of Emma's buyers, got suspicious and contacted the police. Apparently, Emma had promised him exclusive rights to the property, but he found out she'd been negotiating with other developers. He wants his $25,000 back immediately. What happens now? The detective wants to interview you. Emma's in serious legal trouble. Wire fraud, mail fraud, possibly money laundering if she moved funds between states. We're talking about federal charges. I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness for the daughter I'd lost. Relief that the truth was finally coming out. The investigation moved quickly. Within a week, the police had arrested Emma, and the story made the local news. Local woman arrested for property fraud scheme. Suddenly, all the neighbors who'd been whispering about my selfish behavior were calling to apologize. Mrs. Peterson brought over a casserole and an embarrassed confession. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have known Emma was lying. You've been the same kind, honest person for 20 years. I don't know why I believed her stories. Marcus filed for divorce and testified against Emma in the criminal proceedings. He told the court about her lies, her spending, and her manipulation. The judge was not sympathetic. Emma was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution to her victims. Since she'd already spent most of the money, her wages would be garnished for years to come. But here's the thing that surprised me most. I wasn't happy about her punishment. I was sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that she'd chosen this path. Sad that I'd lost my only child to her own greed and selfishness. The house felt empty after everything was settled. I'd won, legally and morally, but victory felt hollow when it meant losing your family. Then something unexpected happened. Marcus called me. Mrs. Davidson, I know this might sound strange, but would you mind if I stopped by sometime? I realized through all of this that you're the closest thing I have to family, and I'd hate to lose that connection just because my marriage to Emma didn't work out. I'd love that, Marcus. He started coming by every few weeks, sometimes bringing friends, sometimes just to sit on the porch and talk. Through Marcus, I met Sarah. Yes, we have the same name. A graduate student in environmental science who was looking for a quiet place to work on her dissertation about lake ecosystems. Would you be interested in renting a room? She asked. I'm clean, quiet, and I love old houses with character. For the first time in months, I smiled. I think I'd like that. Soon, Sarah brought her friend Tom, who was working on his master's thesis in history. Then came Maria, who was studying music therapy and practiced piano in the evenings, something that filled the house with the kind of joy it had been missing. Within 6 months, my empty house had become a warm, lively home again. My tenants weren't just renters, they were family, the kind you choose rather than the kind you're born with. We cook dinner together sometimes, work in the garden, and sit on the porch in the evenings talking about everything and nothing. They respect the house's history while bringing their own energy and dreams to its walls. Last month, Tom graduated and moved to his new job, but not before organizing a goodbye party that brought together everyone who'd come to love this house and this life we'd built together. As I watched these young people laughing and planning and dreaming on the same porch where David and I had spent so many evenings, I realized something profound. I hadn't lost a family. I'd found a better one. The truth I learned through this whole experience is that love isn't about blood or obligation or inheritance. It's about choice, respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. The people in my life now chose to be here, and they stay because they want to, not because they feel entitled to something I own. Emma made her choices based on what she could get from me. These young people make their choices based on what we can give to each other. I still think about Emma sometimes. Wonder if she's learned anything from her experience, if she ever thinks about the mother she lost through her own greed. But I don't dwell on it.